So my very wonderful sister is considering starting a YouTube channel and asked me about video editing software. I always use Kdenlive. I think it's totally awesome. There's many great open source ones out there. And I found that I haven't really seen a very complete beginner's guide to Kdenlive. Maybe I just haven't looked in the right places. But I thought I would do that today and depart from my normal content. So this is the program that I use, and this is what it should look like when you first open it up. This is, again, runnable in Linux on an app image or through Flatpak. Both, I think, are great options. This will run on Windows and Mac. I don't know very much about the Mac version. I think Windows is pretty straightforward. So when you first open this up, let's talk about the user interface. There's some things that I don't use. For instance, this audio thing. I can grab this by the audio tab and pop it right out, and I can put it somewhere else. But I don't really use the audio thing, so I'm just going to click off of it. And likewise, my effect composition stack, I'll relocate it to this middle one here. Actually, we'll just combine it. There we go. So we have clip monitor, library, and effect composition stack. I don't really use time remapping, so I'll get rid of that. And I'll get rid of my subtitles. And then effects, I'm also going to move over here. My library, I'll drag this out and click the X, right? This is just how I personally use and customize my user interface. It's not that you have to do anything. I don't use compositions enough to really care about them here. Clip properties, I don't need. Right, I'm just working to simplify my history, or my user interface rather. So let's do this, right? Pull that up. And then my clip monitor, I don't use. So I'm going to pull my clip monitor out and just click that X. Great. That looks about like how I use it. Okay, so that was the app image that I was running to load and show how to do the user interface. Now I'm in my permanent install that I like better, and this is my permanent interface. So if I didn't cover it already, we can always go to View, Save Layout, give this a name, and then it will allow you to load the layout of your user interface however you like next time. So it's a great way to remember how you've customized your user interface. We can always go to Settings, Configure Kdenlive, and Project Defaults, right? So if you want to do 1080 by 60, you specify this, and then everything that you start working on is defaulted to rendering at 1080 by 60, which I think is very handy. We'll go to timeline. Maybe I want to give my track height 40 and say OK to that. Now notice V2 and V1, A2, A1, right? So I have 2 video tracks and 2 audio tracks. Maybe I want more tracks than that, so we'll go to Configure Kdenlive again. Under Project Defaults, I can make 3 video tracks and 3 audio tracks and apply that. And then I'll close and reopen to apply that change. And now I've got 3 video tracks and 3 audio tracks. Great. I've got my keyboard monitor here if you need to see any hotkeys that I press. Okay, let's load a video now. So I've got an MP4 file that I'm just dragging and dropping into my project bin. And it's saying, oh, this is 30, we're set to 60, so let's switch to 30 frames. And then I'll add, how about one of my YouTube videos from the channel that's just kind of regular footage. So I've got this YouTube video, and I have a scuba video. You'll notice I can just drag and drop all these instances of my videos into my timeline, and you can see that I have the video portion up here and the audio portion down here, and I have the audio waves so that I can see times when it's loud and times when it's quiet. So this is great. Maybe I want to trim some things out, like maybe I want to trim off this beginning sequence here. I can do that with Shift R, and that trims the video. Wherever this playhead is, it will trim. So I can say Shift R, and I can break this into really as many pieces as I want. I can select this and say delete, and that gets rid of that, and I can select this and say delete, and I can start cutting things out of my video because I don't have content on it. You should be able to hear my audio. I think I set it that way so you can hear the video and that I play in here. Maybe I'll load my scuba footage. This was a great vacation when I went scuba diving in Cozumel, and it's fun to have that footage around. This was a GoPro that I was wearing on my head. I think the footage turned out pretty great. All right. So I have these two clips. How do I transition between them from one clip to another? Well, the first thing is I have a video on top of another video. When a video is above the other video, it always defaults to showing the top video, right? So if I want to show my other video, I'll simply drag it on top of that video, and we transition to the CAD video. So whatever's on top is what's going to be shown on top. It kind of makes sense if these are layers. So in that way, I've just created where I go from my video here into my CAD video. Now maybe my audio of me talking is annoying, or I want to use only one of these audios. But if I select this audio and say delete, then it gets rid of the video too. So I'll hit Control Z. What we have to do is right click, ungroup clips, and that ungroups the audio from the video so they no longer go together. I'll hit delete, and now I have my video. I can always, if this ends too soon, drag this out a little bit longer. And maybe I just don't want a hard transition. What if I want one video to fade into the other video? Well, if I go to this lower corner, you'll see kind of a purple speck. There it is. I click on it and I get this purple wipe that goes in between these two video clips. And there I get a smooth kind of faded transition from one clip to another. Now, I can select this wipe with my mouse, and it opens up this little wipe editor in my Effect Composition Stack tab. And in this composition stack, I can download more wipes, which is pretty cool, right? I've got this little download button, and I click it, and it starts loading downloadable wipes if I want to have some more options than what we get. And oh, looks like I've got some new options. I'm going to download that. That looks pretty cool. So we've got a wipe downloading. I'll just let that do its thing off screen. Let's get back to this wipe here. So I click this wipe and I can choose a different wipe method. As you can see, I've downloaded a lot of them. They're all really cool. And now we've got, just a different way to transition. So you have all these options and how you can move from one clip to another. Wipe really is your best friend there. I also might, what if I want to fade in the beginning, right? Because right now the video just kind of abruptly starts at the boat. And if I want that to fade in, I can choose this top corner and drag my fade out. Obviously, the longer I make this, the longer the fade. So now we start at black and we fade in. Kind of a nice, pleasant opening to a video, if you ask me. So we've covered fading and working with wipe to transition between clips. And then we have worked with audio. We've learned how to split audio out. We've learned how to split our clips with Shift R. I think we're cruising so far. What else can we go through? How about text on screen? I'll go to my project bin. I'll right click and choose Add Title Clip. And what can I do I just click in here. What can I say? I'll say, This is text. I'll hit Control A, and maybe I can make this font something like 150. That's probably a good size. And I can edit this text as normal. And I can choose this little drop down. And, oh, Steve, that's a cool font. Maybe instead of a solid color, I want to choose a gradient. And I click this little gradient editor. And maybe I can go with black and green. If you ask me, that's always kind of a cool color scheme. So this is text. I can also add an outline if I wish, right? Maybe I can give this a purplish outline. That color is a little bit busy to me, and then I can just click this up, and I've added an outline. You can also add a shadow, right? You can play with all sorts of stuff. I can automatically center my text, and I can automatically put my text near the bottom of the screen. Notice I can have different options by clicking these more than once. So align left, center, right, top, middle, and bottom. And typewriter effect. I don't even think I've ever used that before. Let's see what happens, if anything cool happens. So I have this. This is text that comes in. Maybe I'll put my text right here. Wow, so the typewriter effect adds one letter at a time. That's pretty cool. So that's how you do text. What if I want to move my text around? Well, that's pretty cool too. For that, we'll want to go to Effects, and I'm going to type in Zoom, and Position and Zoom is what I want. So I'm going to take my position and zoom, drag it down, and drop it right on my text because that's what I want to reposition. And this works by keyframes. So obviously this is the very beginning, right here where the text shows up. And maybe after a little while, when the text is fully written, I'll add in what we call a keyframe. And that is a point that signifies when something is going to change. And maybe I want my text to be continuously moving across the screen until right here. We'll add another keyframe. And now I have this cool option to be able to reposition some of this. So at this keyframe, and I have to be on a keyframe for this to work, I'll move this up like that. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger so that it grows a little bit. Oops, I didn't mean to grab my screen there. There we go. Okay, maybe I want it to end up right there. So what I've done when I play this, great, so it shows up as usual, and then when we hit this keyframe, we're going to start moving to the position of our last keyframe. And then as you saw, it automatically went back to the regular position. So what I can do, and this button here steps through keyframes to the left, this button steps through keyframes to the right, and goes to the very end. And so I'll add a keyframe at the very end, and that will tell the program to keep it in the same place as the keyframe that comes before. This is text. We grow, and now we stay in the same place because of that last keyframe. All right, so we've talked about panning and zooming. Maybe there's a certain thing in my CAD video that I wish to point out, right? So if I go back to this little CAD video, maybe I want to show the history tree for some reason. So if I go into this, I'll go to Effects, Position and Zoom. And maybe if I zoom into this history tree, what I'll do is I'll say, I'll add a keyframe somewhere. And then after that, we'll zoom, zoom, zoom. Maybe I want to stop here. And then maybe I want to zoom out. Well, no, I want to stay the same, zoomed in right there. And then I want to start zooming out here. And then I'm going to finish zooming out at the very end. So again, we start here. And then I start zooming in. I finish zooming in. We stay zoomed in. And then this starts zooming out. And then we finish zooming out, right? So what I'm going to do is we'll say I'll go to a size of 500%. You can see we're way zoomed in. And I'm going to make my X 0. And there you can see my history tree. And then I'll go to this keyframe, and I'm going to do the same thing, 500%. My X is going to be 0. So now when I play this, right, we transition, we're zooming in, we stay zoomed in, now we're going to zoom out, and we're done zooming out, and that's the end of the clip. So that's a way that we can deal with zooming into particular parts. Now obviously I can go back to my keyframes here, and I can go to the one where I mark starting to zoom out, and maybe I make my Y a 0 value. And so that's where we are. X0Y is this top left corner. And now what I've created is we'll zoom in, then we'll zoom up. I guess we'll pan up is the right word, and then we'll zoom out. So lots of things that you can do with these keyframes. Again, it's whatever differences are from keyframe to keyframe creates a smooth transition to the next difference that you specify. So hopefully that example is clear. That's how we can handle zooming and panning in Kdenlive. Kind of a lot of work when you do it all the time, but it's nice when you really need to use it. We, of course, can always get rid of effects down with this X if we wish. Maybe we want to obscure something, right? Maybe we want to redact or hide something. Kdenlive is quite complex in how it can handle things, so I'm going to show one instance of how you can do that. Again, I'll take my Y. I guess I'll zoom into the top corner here. We'll specify my Y to be 0 right here, and that way I'll stay on something long enough that I can redact it. We'll go to Effects, and I'm going to say Obscure. And I'll drag my Obscure on top of my clip. Now my effect composition stack has my position and zooming settings, and then down here it's added Obscure as well. And my Obscure is in this little rectangle. So maybe I don't want to show Extrude. Maybe Extrude needs to be censored because of how inappropriate it is. We'll now see what it looks like. Yep, so you can tell that it just obscures whatever is in that rectangle as we zoom in and out. Probably wasn't a great example because I was in the middle of zooming in during that time, but you can kind of see how it will obscure whatever is in the rectangle. Very simple and easy to use. There's some smart obscure settings where if you have movement in the video, like a license plate that's moving across the screen, you can set the obscure to follow the license plate. I haven't actually gotten that to work myself because I really haven't had a need, but it's kind of a cool feature to look up if you need something like that, so you can potentially blur a face or a license plate or whatever you want that might move around the screen. So when you go scuba diving and you have a camera underwater, let's do a quick sample of this reef. This is a good example. This is looking very green. When you go to depth, you actually lose much of your greens, much of your reds rather, and you have an overabundance of greens and blues. It's just the way that light works at depth. So this is actually an extremely colorful reef with lots of oranges and yellows and all sorts of things, but we've lost the color because of the way that lenses work at depth. What if we want to adjust color? Well, maybe I'll hit Shift R. Actually, no, I don't think I need to. I'll just adjust the color of the whole thing. I like to use curves, so we'll come up here and say curves, and I'll take my curves and I'll drag and drop it down into my clip. And I get this like graph looking thing, and it's set to RGB. So what this is this bottom corner, let's say, is our darkest colors, and this corner over here would be our brightest colors, so white. And so we're saying that as we transition from dark to light, then we can change things on this axis. This axis is also dark and light. So we're saying that if you're in this corner, then you are the darkest. And if you're in this corner, then you're the lightest. And if I start to adjust this, you can tell that now all my colors are dark, because this axis is the overall brightness of what you're changing it to. So if you kind of think of like a math X and Y thing, your X input would be down here where you have colors from dark to light, and then your output is dark to light. And so what I've done is I've said, right, even my bright colors are going to be on the dark part of the Y axis. So I can add like little bendy portions to this, and I can start to adjust the quality of picture that I have, which is pretty cool. So I can take my bright colors and say, oh, in fact, if we look at a dark portion of the screen, like right here or right down here where it's dark, as I drag this down, you can see that dark portions aren't really affected, but my bright whitish portions, as I drag this down, get a lot darker, get a lot less contrast. Likewise, I'll add a point right there, and if I start dragging this up, you can tell that my dark portions, I'll in fact move this over here a little bit, my dark portions get lighter, but my light portions stay unaffected. So again, come on, there we go. The higher that I drag this line is the brighter the dark portions get down here. The lower I drag my line over here, the darker my bright portions get. So that's how color curves work, right? I can adjust all of my colors on these kind of smooth transitions to try to optimize the way my video looks. So again, light colors on this side, woohoo, and dark colors on this side. But what if, in this case, I've lost a bunch of reds? Maybe I want to put red back into my video. I'll just get rid of this because I've kind of butchered that graph. Well, I can change this to be just red. And now I can say, well, I can make my dark reds as bright as my bright reds, which make things very red. And I can remove red from the scene entirely by dragging this down so that everything is at 0. I definitely need to up my dark reds here. Right, so I've added a little bit of red now. You can kind of see it in the darker places. And yep, we're just going to up our bright reds even more. So now we're saying that the brightest reds are as bright as they can be, because we need to add a lot of red in this. Let's go back to effects. We'll go to curves, and I'll add in another color in here. This time we'll go green, and I want to filter green out of this. So I'm going to take my bright greens out of this. You can see we get a little bit more blue, and my dark greens, yeah, we'll keep that down. Next, let's go to effects. I'm going to add in yet another curves, and let's work on blue. So I'm going to lower my blue a little bit. Maybe I'll just do my middle blues. Yeah, that looks pretty good, I think. And then let's type in temperature. So with color temperature, which is down here, I can start adjusting what I want my temperature to be. As you can tell, we go from blues to kind of dark reds. So I can use my color temperature to add in some more reds as well. We're never going to be totally perfect, but we can sure give it a try. So there's my color temperature. And then we'll go to exposure. Type in for exposure. And if I turn my exposure up, you can see we get brighter and we get darker the other way. So I'm going to expose it just a little bit more. And then, as you can tell, when I drag this forward and back, you can kind of see the behavior. Darker until we get way a lot of saturation. And then over here, so it's kind of tricky. That is kind of a blurry image now. Well, maybe not blurry, but this minimized twist is actually a really... So we may want to ask ourselves, how do we compare it to the original? So I'm going to take my CAD video and delete it. And maybe I'll add my scuba video on again. And I can go with a crop. And I'll show, actually I'll go with edge crop. I like that the best. And maybe I'm going to crop my right side by 800 pixels. And then we'll move this. Position and zoom. And I'll take my Y and move it 400. Oh, it's my X, isn't it? I'm going to say 0. X will say negative 400. And there, now we've got a split screen to where if I hide my video 1, there we go. Yep, hide and show. You can tell we're looking at different layers. This video is on top, and this video is on the bottom, and we're looking at both because I've cropped one and moved it over. So I've got a split screen where you can kind of see before and after. You can see we've added some red in there, which is kind of cool. We've also, I think we have a sharper image now, probably from all the processing. Is it better? I don't like this as much as some other edits that I've done, but that's okay because we can always go back and adjust it. Right, so you can tell that my reds are going in and out of this very well, I think. I'm going to take my lighter greens and remove my lighter greens just a little bit. And now it should be RGB. We're just going to emphasize our kind of middle colors slightly more. And it's nice to be able to compare between the two. I think this is a little bit more realistic looking now. So another thing that I can add here is I can go to Effects, and I can open up a white balance. I'll just stick this in my next clip as well. And I can start to adjust this. You can tell what it looks like at the extremes. But I think white balance is a pretty powerful tool to try to get things to look the way that you want them. I think I like this. Oh, maybe not. You can see some unnatural red saturation there. But again, we can go back and edit this if we wish. I think I have made my point about all of this pretty clear, so I won't belabor any more fine adjustments. Yeah, I think we've ended up with a sharper, more colorful video here. The other thing, I've edited scuba videos before and it's turned out better than this, but I've used all the same tools to do it, so this would be just a matter of fine-tuning. How do we deal with sound? I like to deal with that externally. There's this great open source program called Audacity. So I'll pull that up. So Audacity is able to edit sound very well. So I'll take my scuba audio. I'm going to drag and drop my just MP4 scuba video into Audacity, and it starts just sorting out the sound from that video. It ignores the video itself, it just adds the sound. So often you might have a video that has background noise or something else that you want to get rid of. In my case, maybe I just want to have some breathing sounds, but not necessarily the pistol shrimp that you can hear. You hear all those little snaps and crackles and pops. That is pistol shrimp that make pretty loud noises to find one another. So what if we want to get rid of that white noise? I'm going to select that white noise here in Audacity. That's fine. We just select a small sample of white noise. We're going to go to Effect, Noise Reduction, Get Noise Profile, and that's selected what we've had highlighted. Now I'm going to hit Control A to select everything, and we're again going to say Effect, Noise Reduction, and we're just simply going to say OK. We can adjust our noise reduction in decibels, how sensitive our settings are, the smoothing bands. This works really great without adjusting the settings. I think I've got a few adjustments on this from past videos, but I'm going to say OK. And now it applies the noise reduction so we can get rid of some of the sounds of the pistol shrimp and the ambient ocean noise and whatever we want. And what kind of sound are we dealing with now? If I play it, we hear very little, if any, pistol shrimp and other noise. So I think noise reduction does an awesome job. If you're screencasting and have your computer noise, this is the way to fix it. And then it still keeps the breathing sounds because I didn't specify the breathing sounds as white noise. So we can say File, Export, MP3. And then Audacity gives you some ways to add like your artist name, album track, whatever. I'm just going to say OK. And it exports it as an MP3 file. While that's exporting, notice that I have two audio files here. Of course, I just want one, so I'm going to ungroup my clip and get rid of my audio. And of course, I'm exporting audio, so I'm going to ungroup this clip and get rid of my audio. Import my scuba audio MP3 file, right? So this is a sound file. And I can stick this in the audio section, and now I've got much quieter audio, but you really only hear the bubbles coming out of my regulator. If I skip ahead, I'm liking the sharper image. So I'll share a little piece of my vacation with you. And if you double click on this, it will go full screen. I've got multiple monitors, so that's going full screen, off screen. As we go over this reef again, this is extremely colorful. You're just not seeing it because of all the depth and the color loss. So it's hard to see, but right down in there was about a 10-foot nurse shark, which is always fun to see nurse sharks. So we're kind of gathered around watching this nurse shark, and then a large moray eel pops out right next to the shark. That's the nose of the eel right there. Again, wow, that's not hardly able to see at all, but that was really cool. So this would be a higher quality photograph of our nurse shark and moray eel, which was just super cool to be able to see. So that was a really fun time. But what if I want to speed this up? What if I want to do a little time lapse of this whole dive? Well, I turn my head a lot, so it might not be a great candidate for time lapse. But let's say that I've accepted that I like this. I can find my position and zoom. We'll get rid of that. That'll take us to the middle. And then I want to get rid of my edge crop. Here's my edge crop. We'll get rid of that. And we're back to a full screen. I'll delete this other scuba instance. And then if I right click on here, I can say change speed. And I can specify a time. Like maybe I want this to be 10 minutes long. And it goes down to 10 minutes and just plays faster to fill up that time. Or I can go to change speed and specify a percentage increase in speed. Now, of course, when you speed things up, you won't see it in full resolution. This is text, I like that. So this will be smoother than what we're looking at here, because of course our video editor has to work with all that on the fly. So once you render it, it'll probably get a lot smoother. So now that we have a faster clip, maybe I want to reverse it. Well, I can go to change speed and select this reverse clip. And now we're going to be heading backwards through the scuba dive. Which is pretty cool. So we can go forwards or reverse. Now when you speed things up, you might get a high helium voice if your audio speeds up with it. I ungrouped my audio so I don't have to worry about that. But if that happens, you can always say change speed and go with pitch compensation, and that keeps the pitch nice and low so you don't get a high helium voice if that's a problem. Alright, so we've done audio. I think that's going to do it. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.